What if Dabi, Toya Todoroki, Endeavor's son, was a hero? So, we all know there's a couple different ways this could happen. In the real story, the main reason Toya burned himself and ended up becoming a villain is because his dad didn't go to Soda Peak with him, the place where Toya wanted to show Endeavor his new firepower and how strong he was getting. So there are two main paths. Endeavor goes to Soda Peak and praises his son, tells him to stop, and actually supports him. But honestly, that doesn't make for the most interesting hero timeline. Toya's ice quirk awakens, and this is the way more interesting what if I'm going with, because this quirk would be perfect for him. This is literally what Endeavor wanted from the start. A kid who could produce insane heat, but also cool their internal temperature so they don't burn themselves alive. That's what Endeavor originally wanted. Not half cold, half hot like Shoto. That was just the compromise. What Endeavor truly wanted was someone exactly like this. And Toya's flames are way stronger than Endeavor's. But the downside is, his body is built for cold, not for heat. So he overheats insanely fast, meaning he can burn himself with even small flames. But in this timeline, his body is still resistant to the cold. But now he has an internal ice quirk that cools him from the inside, so he can freeze the surface of his skin to protect himself, and the heat won't hurt him anymore. Now he actually has control over his flames and over his body temperature. Outside his body, he can shoot flames that are thousands of degrees. Inside his body, he stays completely cooled because his ice quirk is constantly regulating him. So this is originally the direction I want to take this story. Let's get right into it. Now, some people would say that since Endeavor has his perfect child, he wouldn't have any use for Todoroki, but I don't think that's true. I think Endeavor would still have Todoroki anyway. Shoto having half hot, half cold is still a super good quirk, so Endeavor could actually train both of them at the same time. And obviously with Toya's intellect, he basically has a photographic memory. He learns things insanely fast. We already saw that he copied Shoto's move that took Shoto months to learn, just by watching it and fighting once. On top of that, Toya's fire quirk burns thousands of degrees hotter than Endeavor's or Shoto's. The only thing Shoto really has over Toya is his raw ice output. Toya does have ice, but he doesn't shoot it out. He uses it to regulate his body temperature. Because of that, Toya is basically way more powerful than Endeavor and would never stop fighting since his body would never overheat. So in this timeline, Endeavor is extremely focused on Toya's training. Toya still kind of goes a little crazy at first, but Endeavor is never in that bad, abusive dad situation. The main reason everything broke apart in the original timeline was because Endeavor was scared his son would get hurt or die, and he pushed all that blame onto his wife. That's what caused everything. Rei getting hurt, Shoto getting scarred, all of it. In this timeline, Endeavor is actually happy. Toya wants to be a hero, and Endeavor supports him. The family doesn't completely fall apart. The only weird part is that Toya still has that obsession. He wants to be better than All Might. That part of him never fully goes away. Shoto still gets born. Now let's go over the ages, because this is where it gets confusing. Ages and placement. Toya Todoroki, 24. Shoto Todoroki, 16. Toya is 8 years older than Deku, Bakugo, and Shoto Shigaraki, 21. Toya is 3 years older. Mirio, 18. Toya is 6 years older. Aizawa, Eraserhead, 31. About 7 years older than Toya. Because of this, it's really hard to place Toya in the same UA timeline as everyone else. Even Shigaraki wouldn't be at UA with him. Shigaraki would still be a first year, while Toya would already be out. So this is really Toya's own journey, separate from Deku's generation. Since Toya would already be out of UA by the time most of the main cast even gets there, it's kind of impossible to place him with everyone else. So this is really his own journey, and let's just get right into that. Now, I know the timeline is kind of hard to piece together, so just bear with me here. Toya still trains with Endeavor all the way up until around 15 years old. By this point, he's already learned a lot. He loves to train, he loves getting stronger, and he genuinely wants to become a hero one day. Because of that, he'd most likely be a recommended student. But even if he wasn't, the UA entrance exam would honestly be pretty easy for him. The main thing holding Toya back isn't power, it's stamina. Using both his fire output and his internal ice regulation at the same time takes a lot out of him, so that's what he has to work on the most. Endeavor teaches him all of his famous moves, Flash Fire Fist, all of them, and Toya picks them up fast. Since Toya actually enjoys the training, he takes in way more than Endeavor expects. By the time Toya is 15 and enters UA, Shoto Todoroki is around 7, Mirio is around 9. Aizawa, Eraserhead, would already be a teacher. Toya would definitely be in Class A. He's insanely strong, extremely skilled, and he's the son of the number 2 hero. Throughout UA, Toya focuses heavily on stamina and refining his special moves. He starts fighting more at close range, compressing his flames into smaller points, kind of like how Bakugo fights, burning everything in one focused spot instead of wasting energy. He would most likely do his internship, or even a partnership, with Endeavor, since that's his dad, and Endeavor would honestly love training with him and pushing him to get get better and better. And in his first year sports festival, I honestly think Toya would place number 1. Because really, who's stopping him? Now let's go over who would actually be in Toya's UA class. Like I said before, it's really hard to know exact ages in My Hero, but the only people that are even close to Toya's age are honestly kind of crazy. The closest one is Hawks. Hawks is around 23, and Toya is 24, so they're basically only a year apart. That means they would most likely be in the same class. That's really the only character that fits perfectly. Miss Lady is around 22, so she'd be about 2 years younger than Toya, which is wild because I always thought Toya was way younger, but he's actually really old in the My Hero universe. So realistically, the only real classmate Toya would have is Hawks. If Hawks was at UA during that time, Toya would absolutely be training with him. Hawks would probably even become more fire resistant from fighting and training with Toya all the time. Toya would still participate in the sports festival, still go through his class like normal, learn way more, and go on internships, most likely with Endeavor's agency, since their quirks are similar, and Endeavor knows exactly how to train him. By the time Toya reaches 18, he's already graduated from UA. That's his final year. After graduating, Endeavor would probably take Toya on as a sidekick from around 18 to 19 or 20. After that, Toya would go off and start his own hero agency at around 20 years old. At that point, Shoto would be around 11 or 12, so he wouldn't be in UA yet. You have to be around 15 to enter UA. Deku entered when he was around 14, turning 15. So Toya and Deku would not overlap at UA. After Toya finishes being Endeavor's sidekick, he becomes his own pro hero, running his own agency. By that point, I honestly think Toya would already be top 20 at least, because Endeavor is not abusive in this timeline. Shoto grows up completely different. He wouldn't hate his dad, he wouldn't have the scar, and he'd be using his fire side from the very beginning. Shoto would still intern with Endeavor, but sometimes he'd also intern with his older brother Toya. Toya could help Shoto with fire control, and even teach him internal temperature regulation, since Toya already mastered that with his own quirk. So now let's jump forward. Final arc changes. By the time we reach the final arc, Deku and Shoto are 16, Toya is 24. The villain side changes a lot here, because Dabi never exists. Toya was originally another potential successor option for All for One, but now that Toya is a hero, All for One has to look elsewhere. Shoto still plays a big role in the story, just without Dabi being his opponent. The villains would simply find another replacement, maybe Overhaul or someone else, but the hero side stays mostly the same. Endeavor has a clean past now. There's no family trauma, no public downfall, no scandal. He's not haunted by guilt, and he doesn't fall apart mentally. When the hospital raid happens and Shigaraki awakens, Toya is there with his dad. He's one of the strongest heroes alive in this timeline, so he would absolutely be part of the hospital raid. When Shigaraki comes out and starts fighting Endeavor, Toya fights right beside him. Since Toya can fly and has way more stamina, he can stay in the air longer and keep up constant pressure. With Endeavor's firepower plus Toya's flames, they can almost completely incinerate Shigaraki early on. That alone would change the fight massively, especially before Deku and Bakugo lead Shigaraki away. When Gigantomachia shows up, there's no Dabi to reveal his past or stall things. Everything keeps moving forward. From there, the story mostly plays out the same, just without Dabi. Shoto ends up fighting someone else in the final battle instead, and Toya continues fighting alongside the top heroes. So now, let's skip straight to the final battle. So we're gonna have to switch some fights around. Endeavor, Hawks, and the other top heroes still face All for One. Everything with Endeavor getting his arm cut off still stays the same. But here's the difference. Toya Todoroki is there too, and Toya is a top 10 strongest hero in this timeline. With Toya's firepower added in, they can push All for One back even harder. They could probably force him to rewind another generation and basically kill him one more time. Toya's flames are insanely strong, so that helps a lot, but All for One still manages to escape in the end, just like before. Later on, when All for One fights Bakugo, he's way more cautious. He knows he only has one rewind left, so Bakugo has to die, or it's over for him. Once Bakugo gets his moment and pushes through, All for One goes for the final rewind, turns into a baby, and Bakugo kills him. Boom, he's done. Now, for Shoto Todoroki, I think his fight placement changes too. Instead of being where he originally was, Toga pulls him into a completely different portal. Shoto ends up helping Bakugo instead. Because Shoto has such a strong quirk, he can actually help counter Shigaraki's hand and body transformations. When Shigaraki starts doing all that weird hand growth stuff, Shoto can block it with ice, and then burn through it immediately. Because of that, Bakugo doesn't end up in that near-death situation. He doesn't get his arm destroyed or anything like that. They hold Shigaraki back until Deku arrives, and from there, everything everything mostly plays out the same in the story. But the really important part is this. There is no sad ending where Dabi, Toya, gets put into that machine and dies after the final battle. The Todoroki family never hates him. Endeavor's family stays together. Toya doesn't leave. Shoto doesn't grow up broken. And one of the biggest changes is that Endeavor's wife never ends up in that mental state she was in originally. The Todoroki family actually gets a happy ending. So yeah, that's basically how the final arc plays out in this timeline. If you liked this What If, go check out What If Deku unlocked his quirks early? What if Deku had his powers from the start? Make sure to like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments what if you want next.